Hi everyone, my name's Elizabeth, I'm a marine biologist, and today I want to kind of help clarify, help share exactly what marine biology is, what kind of a career it is, what path you could follow, what kind of jobs you could get, and kind of clear up that mystery of what exactly is it. So why is there this mystery around marine biology? Why is there this confusion about what exactly marine biology is? Well, it kind of comes with the territory. It's because of how diverse that marine biology as a career really is. Marine biology, the study, is the study of anything living in our oceans. But with 71% of our planet being covered by oceans with an incredible amount of life in, no wonder there is it's an undefinable amount of study, right down to microorganisms that live in the sea, to tracking giant whales. Marine biology is the study of everything in between that and probably brings in more. So I'm going to kind of walk you through how you would get into marine biology, how I did it, what I learned, so that I can kind of start to clarify exactly what are those in-between areas, and then what could you go on to study or do as a career in that. Before we continue, you need to know that the way I got into marine biology, I've gone down like a research path. So I did a undergraduate in marine biology, and then I've gone on to continue to study up until the level of a PhD, which is when you study to get a doctorate. But I got into it from a degree level. Now I'm sure there are ways to get into marine biology without having a degree, but that's not something that I know much about because that's not the path I took. So I'm not going to talk about those other various options. I'm sure that there are people out there, if you search on the internet, that have amazing, and it always surprises me the variety of ways to get into different careers, and I'm sure that's out there. But I'm going to be talking about my own experience, and that is going through an undergraduate first. Now I didn't really know what marine biology was, even signing up to a marine biology undergrad. I had researched and knew what the topics were, but it's not until you're in it that you realise just how expansive, how broad an understanding you will get coming out of a degree. Now, degrees do change depending on what you take, what your title is, and what university it is. This video won't focus on that, but if it's something you're interested in, advice for looking at choosing different unis or looking at what the differences between courses might be, then first of all contact the universities themselves, but you can also comment below, and it might be something that I can make in another video. But you would hope that whatever university you went to, you would get a broad covering of the marine world. And so in my undergrad, I learned from things from evolution, I learned about plants, diseases, parasites. We learned about the difference in like body structure as you went through the evolution of animals. We learned about plankton, about ocean currents. We learned about using statistics and maths and coding. We learned about like chemistry of cells really early on. We learned about marine vertebrates, which like sharks and whales and everything. We learned about marine invertebrates, so everything without a backbone, covering, you know, this broad massive range. We learn how to kind of survey to see if something's going to have an environmental impact. We learn about the impact of like different chemicals on the sea and the animals in it. We learn about fishing and aquaculture and fish stocks. We learn about the deep sea. We learn about polar regions. We learn about tropics, about seagrass and mangroves and corals. We learn about behaviours, about testing behaviours, We learnt about ecology and rocky shores. We learnt about, I mean, just thinking about it now, look, I just miss that so much, getting to sit down and look and listen to this lecture where you learn just so much information is just chucked at you that you never knew existed. And that is one of the great things about a degree. But the difference between marine biology and, say, other degrees is that it's not just lectures. Mixed in with all of those different topics that we learnt about, we got to do labs, we got to go outside in the field. When we needed to learn about fish stocks, or we went out on a boat and learned about how you would sample fish stocks by the techniques you would use there. When we needed to learn about rocky shore stuff, we went to the rocky shore. We needed to learn about marine inverts. We went on the boat and did a grab sample so that we could see what lived on the seabed. We did aquaculture stuff, so looking at how to keep different organisms alive. We did labs where we would stain cells to look at the cells of different organisms, dissect fish to see how their structure inside basically could tell you a lot about how that animal lived their life. We were in computer labs looking at data and learning how to process things like that. And that's what marine biology gives you. That's why it's so varied, because you can do so much. And this is at this point in the undergrad, which is probably 2 years in, not even in the last year, you begin to realise that marine biology, in its essence, although broad, is a career where if you don't want to be stuck in an office all day, you won't have to be. Sure, you might be in the office for the majority of the time, but maybe once a week, not even that, maybe once a month, you get to go outside, maybe more, maybe much less, but you can be outside. It's a career where a proportion of your time will be outside depending on the weather's good. A lot of the time it will require weeks of intensive fieldwork where you're outside for a month and then for the rest of the year you're inside, but it's a career that can give you that option. It's also a career where if you don't want to be outside, you can stay inside. You can do lab work or work in an aquarium type setting where you're inside most of the time, but you're not in an office either. Or if you just want to be in an office looking at data and you love that aspect, then marine biology is also a career that can give you that. It can give you anywhere on that spectrum, from being outside all day every day to being inside all of the time, because the things you can study and the things you can learn are so flexible that you can kind of pick and choose whatever you decide you wanted to do, and it will probably change. And that's one of the great reasons about doing an undergrad, is that you get to try all of these different things and work out exactly what you want. Because going into it, you may think, I'd love a life in the tropics, getting to learn about corals, when actually you find it far more interesting to learn about things that are in more temperate zones, like here, where you're outside in the cold on the beach all day, but that is far more favourable. You joke, but that's kind of, my thought pattern and what I like, instead of the tropical stuff, although I do. So let's talk more about careers. That is what you learn and what you study, but you don't make a job, unless you're a teaching academic lecturer, which is what I would like to be, out of sitting and listening to lectures. So, what paths can you take? You can take the research academic pathway, which will lead you on to doing an infinite amount of things, depending on whatever you can get funding to do and whatever takes your fancy. This is where a lot of variety comes in and a lot of flexibility comes in. So, in short, a researcher is someone who can get funding and convince someone to do funding to further science, to come up with something new, learn something new, and do something that you hopefully think and is important. That can be anything, any problem you see in science, any area that we have left out, you can try and do that. And doing an undergraduate and carrying on to do research, you gain a skill set where you're able to basically conduct the research you want. That can be fully lab work, fully data, fully outside, maybe not fully outside, you can be outside a lot, and then you come back and you do your research and you do your analysis. Just thinking of things that were there when I was doing my undergraduate, thinking of different groups that I've run into throughout my career. These are things like creating tags that you can attach to different animals in the wild, track them, learn about their daily life, then come back and analyse the data inside, getting to go on great and cool, awesome field trips abroad and coming back to do work. It can be working in an aquaculture facility where you're doing tests and learning research on the animals that we need for aquaculture, which is basically more of a lab thing. You're inside in this like aquaculture environment, and then you can come back and write up your research. You can do studies where you set up tanks inside and study behaviour. You can do things where you go outside and study wildlife like the rocky shores and come back and look at that research. You can do things where you go out on boats, or you go to Antarctica and do a study there with like the British Antarctic Survey. You can get a bit of data from a great institution and sit there and analyse that if you want. Really, research is endless opportunities, which is why I find it so exciting. You can do whatever you want as long as it fits within the ethics and you can get funding for it. And so that's a pathway you can take, which might not clarify exactly what it is, because going into research is kind of, me explaining research is almost another video in and of itself. But during an undergrad you will get to learn exactly what research is and exactly if you like it. Other people might not fancy research, they might not fancy that style of work, and that's fair enough, and there are plenty of other jobs in marine biology. The best way, I would say, for you to work out what those jobs are is just have a Google, having a look, and jobs do come in ebbs and flows, so there'll be different jobs at different times, so look a couple of times a year and see the list of things that are put up. See what people are advertising for, see what comes under the marine biology job description, and just have a look at the broad range of jobs that you might get. You can finish your undergrad and go work in a fancy, lovely hotel in the tropics, taking people snorkeling and diving every single day to show them marine life. You can go work at a fishery in an aquaculture farm, making sure that fish are looked after properly, making sure that the fish stocks are good. You can work for a museum like the Natural History Museum that have various pockets of different outreach, and there's things like they track whales in whale strandings around the UK that will go back to the Natural History Museum, jobs like that. There are jobs working in aquariums, doing research in aquariums, doing science and outreach, going to schools, teaching kids about things, working in field centres, which kind of take kids from schools, go on a school trip and you teach them about the wildlife in that area. There are jobs looking at diseases and lab work, so a lot of like samples. There are jobs looking at identifying things, so companies will do like environmental impact assessments, so they'll assess the damage that could possibly happen if they introduced a new structure into the sea, and part of that they will go out and survey different areas, so you'll be outside all day surveying all the species, bring them back, ID them properly. That will kind of feed into a system where we know what could be affected if something went in. That's a lot of like environmental consultants do that kind of work. They'll so that people can hire them to do surveys and learn things about marine biology. You can go on to learn boat skills and become like boat skippers, and you can go on to learn diving and do professional diving. There are more freelance things. You can go on to do like a career in photography with marine biology, or like identifying that kind of thing, videos, not entirely specifically that, but you can go down that career because a lot of people are outside looking at species all the time. There are so many different varieties of things that you could do, and it doesn't mean that everyone does it. And there's no degree course where everyone leaves the degree and all goes on and does exactly what they said they were going to do. And I'm not really, I suppose I'm not going to comment too much on if it's possible. I can't tell you, if you went down a career of marine biology, would you be guaranteed to get the job? Or even, would it be the job that you wanted? Because you could start an undergrad course and absolutely love it, and it still wouldn't be the right choice for you. Or you could absolutely love it and maybe you won't find a job, or you could. I can't predict the future for you, but what I will say is that yes, marine biology is known to be competitive. Look at what I just described, a life where you could be diving outside as a career. Of course it's going to be competitive, but that doesn't mean that there's not jobs out there. There are always jobs out there. I would say it's a career where you have to be a bit more flexible maybe than other things. It's very location based as well, so finding the right location, because you might have to be on the coast. You can't study tropical things unless you go to the tropics, that kind of thing. So it's a job where you travel is probably likely, and you might have to be flexible in the fact that you might have to move around if you want your dream job. Doesn't mean you won't get a job. If you want to stay where you want to stay, it might just not be the exact job that you want. Then again, you could get your dream job exactly where you want to stay. So it's not something that's set in stone. There are definitely options out there, but it is competitive and you might have to be flexible, but it can lead to great opportunities. If you wanted to, you could try and get a job in Antarctica. If you wanted to, you could get a job in any country with a coast. You could work in universities, in research institutes, in aquariums. You can work in environmental consultants around the world, and you can travel to tell people. If you go into academia, you travel around the world to go to different conferences, to share what you've learned, to share your knowledge, and it's an exciting career. It really is. And even now, coming at the end, or getting to the end of this PhD, I don't know where the future holds, and that to me is exciting. I could end up in any country in the world doing something hopefully related to what I like, but the options are open, and I've never felt in marine biology that there aren't options, which I think is very important to say. That I've never felt, sure, I've got rejected for a lot of stuff, and sure, I've never ever have I ever got anything that I've gone for like straight away. Like, I applied for a lot of PhDs, I applied for a lot of things before getting stuff, but I've never felt like I wouldn't ever eventually get something. It's just whether it was the right thing. So I hope that's kind of helped clarify exactly what marine biology is, exactly kind of what some of the careers you could do are. If you found this useful and want me to kind of explain a bit more on certain aspects, I can do bigger, deep delves into different career paths and talk about that a lot more. This has been a very broad and general kind of explanation because I wanted to cover as much as I could to spark some ideas, but anything you want more specific information on, comment below, let me know, and I will be more than happy to do more research, explain more things, and even speak to some people and see if we can, bring them in for some clarification. Good luck with your journeys if you want to be a marine biologist. Good luck with your journey if you don't want to be a marine biologist, but I hope this has provided some inspiration for you rather than completely put you off. But I've been honest, and I'm hoping to be honest, and I'm hoping that my honest opinion of what marine biology is has helped you. I hope you have a fab week, everyone. See you next Wednesday for another video. Bye.